Maybe we've been together. We have 3 children and I still love you. I'm so crazy enough to, since the first day I saw you, from the US to Africa, baby, here we are. Everything that we've been through, all the lessons we learned too. Let's share it all and talking with the Tapas.
Hello and welcome. In today's episode, we're going to talk about preventing or fighting child abuse. It's no secret that many children face different types of abuse, such as sexual abuse and gender-based violence. It is sad and honestly disgusting that men and women who should be protecting little children are abusing them and using them for their own pleasure and to get out their anger. Today, we will hear from a brave young lady, Masego Sibunga, who has sadly experienced this abuse. This is not going to be easy for her, but our hope and our prayer is that as she shares, many will be encouraged and that many will also start speaking out. Part of the reason why this topic or this issue of abuse continues on and on is because sadly in our culture, we tend to shy away from those things that don't make our family look good. What ends up happening is that our children then live alone and carry this huge burden of this abuse, which is not good. At this point, we're going to introduce our guest, Masego, who's joining us virtually.
Hello, everyone. My name is Masego, and I am a writer and a spoken word artist. I also do other things as well, like studying, and I also work in mental health. So today, I'm going to talk to you about my childhood. So this is not an easy thing for me to talk about, but I'm willing to do it. I'm willing to talk about it because I know that there are so many young girls and boys who are hurting. And I know that no one spoke about it when I was a child. And I really wish someone would have. And I'm willing to do this. If I can just help one person feel encouraged, if I can just help one parent know what to look for when their child is being abused, and if I can just reach out to one person who is hurting kids and just make them see the damage that they're causing. So this is my story. My history of sexual abuse started when I was very young, about 1.5 years. Now, I don't have a memory of that story, of that happening to me, but I heard from my mother that there was already evidence from just in my neighbors that someone was violating me. My earliest memory was when I was about 5. I was home alone with this person, and I was just playing outside, just like kids do. And he called me inside the house, and I still have vivid memories of that incident. And the crazy thing is that it didn't just stop there, and it continued for years and years. And I remember just wishing someone could see that something was happening to me, that there was something wrong that was being done to me. So I became quiet, I became withdrawn. And as a child, I couldn't even make friends because I felt like I had to keep this to myself. There was like so much shame, which wasn't even mine to carry, which was even mine to bear. And I remember that there were like so many signs that something wrong was happening to me because I wasn't just a normal child as well. Sometimes I would just cry. I used to cry a lot. for no reason at all. I could be at school and just cry. I could be just sitting and just cry. But at that point, I couldn't say why I was crying. I wanted to tell someone, but I just didn't have the words to say it. And the thing is, in our culture, there's some things that you're not supposed to talk about as a kid. If we can't talk about our body parts, then how am I going to tell you if someone touched them? And it was really, really hard because it's not something that's being spoken about. So I remember being grown, and when I was a teenager, I was just tired. I constantly felt dirty inside, and I just didn't want to live in the body that was being used like that. I didn't want to live anymore, so I wanted to kill myself. I shouldn't be here talking to you today, but thank God none of my plans worked. And so one other thing that I remember when I was a child is that there was just evidence that something traumatic was happening to me. But people around me used to just say, like, they would assume that I had a disability of sort because I wasn't functioning like a normal child. I was just too forgetful. I would zone out. You would like send me to a room to do something and I would zone out and forget what I was there to do. I couldn't do simple tasks that I should have been able to do as a child. If you leave me sitting here, you could come back 3 hours later and I'll still be sitting here. That's not something that a normal child does. And so people around me just assumed that I must have had a disability. And that made me believe that something was wrong with me. And that made me think that all those things were happening to me just because something was wrong with me. So if I'm the problem, then how do I ask for help if I believe that I'm the problem? So I remember having a really difficult time coping and not being able to talk to someone and hoping that someone would just see that something is happening and just make it stop. But it didn't happen. And at some point, I had to go to God and ask Him to help me, which was something that I really didn't want to do because I was angry at God. I wished I wasn't born. I always ask God, why would you let this thing happen to me? I didn't do anything. I was just a child. I should have been playing like any other child, any other children do. Like I should have been given a healthy childhood. I didn't commit any crimes. So I was angry at God because I felt like He allowed this to happen to me. And I had this pattern of sexual abuse. So I came to the end of myself and I realized that only God could help me heal. And when I went to Him, I was like, God, here's my heart. I'm hurting and I'm angry and I don't know what to do. Because one moment I think I'm okay, I'm motivated. And the next moment, I don't want to be here. I'm thinking of the fastest thing I can get myself out of this world. And so that's how my journey of healing began. And God provided peace. He provided understanding. He provided people who came in and they loved me and they held my hand as I walked this journey of healing because we need people. We do. So to everyone who's been abused before, to every child who's hurting or being hurt, I may be the first person to say this to you that I believe you and it is wrong and it is not your fault. And I believe that there is hope. I'm on a journey of healing, and I can promise you that I'm not where I used to be. And to parents, let's pay attention and let's believe our kids. And if your child comes to you with a story like this, take them out of that situation fast, because it's not easy to live your life feeling dead on the inside. Thank you.
So we just thank Masejo for sharing her story, and she has been bold and courageous to share that. It's not easy, but she's done that because she wants to help other people in a way that she was never helped. So now, as the way our show works is that you're able to ask her questions. And again, this is not to exploit her, this is to give her an opportunity to speak to people about what she's learned and hope that the lessons she's learned will be able to help thousands, if not millions of people that are suffering in silence. So does anyone have any questions for Masejo?
Did you report it to the police, or you just got healed by the grace of God only and you left the issue for God's intervention?
I don't know if the law heals, and I am on a journey of healing. This was something that happened to me at home, and it's still very much within my family, and there hasn't been like the police involved. And for me, even if I wanted to, it's not something that's easy to go and talk about. So no, I haven't been to the police. And I think the crazy thing is I'm not alone. Almost every girl that I know in Botswana has been violated sexually at some point. And none of us have gone to the police. And the question is there really enough support? Because if you're ridiculed at home, I don't know if people understand what it's like to go and say, this happened to me, and have it being speculated. So on my side, no, I haven't gone to the police. And also, I'm not saying that I'm completely healed. I'm on a journey of healing, because I believe it's going to take time to undo all the damage that's been done for years.
Thanks. I think that's a good answer. And I think she's bringing up a good point that at this current point, it's so hard. Masejo and I have talked about this because I've known Masejo for a long time. And one of the things she was saying is, if they can't take me out that day that I go and report it, I'm not going to go report it, because then the abuse is going to be even worse the next night. And so it becomes very difficult for our young women, and men for that matter, to say what's happening to them, because unless they can be assured that that's it, once they go and speak truth, they're rescued, which that's usually not the case, then the pain that they're going to feel at home is way more scary than going to the police. So we've got to find ways. I don't know what the solution is, but somehow we have to find solutions, or otherwise, like she said, she knows so many people that have suffered the same thing, and they don't know how to ask for help because it's too scary to ask for help.
Just to add to that, there are some things that we can start doing, conversations that we can start as a society, in terms of our laws, whether it's the police, whether it's the social workers, just empowering the people that are in a position to assist these children who are abused, so that when they speak out, the support system is strong enough. And like, Ashley and Masejo have said, you don't know currently if you speak out, are you actually going to get helped? We need to destigmatize, this issue of not being able to speak about some of these things. I mean, I think something that Masejo talked about in her introduction was, it is in our culture, you can talk about your private parts. They are, as a matter of fact, if you use the word for, for those private parts, it's an insult. When you speak it, it's like you are insulting the other person listening to you. So how do you then get into honest conversations about things that are happening to you? How do we then help our children to say, if somebody touches you here, there's your private parts. If somebody touches you over here, those are your private parts. Talk to us. I mean, this is what we say to our children. But a lot of children don't have that freedom to say, if somebody touches you in this area, these are your private parts, they shouldn't, so tell us as your. If that is not voiced out, these little children, remember, they depend on our protection. And so if we're not giving them that freedom to express themselves and to feel protected, they are never going to do it because they know the system is set up for them to fail. And so that is the sad part. And this, by the way, does not exclude churches. Churches as well are a huge support for the community. And what better place than for these children to at least, if they can't go to the law, if they cannot go to the police, at least in our churches, we must have systems where these children are able to come to us and safely speak to somebody. Sometimes also what happens, they go and speak to somebody. And sadly, even within our church walls, we then have perpetrators who actually, instead of helping these little ones, they actually make it worse. So we really, as a society, need to bring these systems together and allow these children and convince these children and help these children know that we are available to help them and to walk with them. That will make things easier. It's not going to change overnight, but slowly, one person at a time. And that is what this show is meant to do, is that it can give somebody a voice, and one person at a time, and before you know it, it's our culture. We can change it. We are the ones who are in charge of this culture. And so hopefully as we start talking, we can start changing some of the ways we do.
Part of your journey, does that include you actually seeking therapy in terms of maybe professional help to help you with your healing? And then my second question is, I can clearly see you are a beautiful adult. And this incident, which happened to you over the couple of years with obviously the person who perpetrated this injustice on you, are you not afraid that since you never reported it to the police or anything, that maybe this person has continued this with somebody else who's younger?
Yeah, so the first question is, I am in therapy right now. It wasn't easy to get like a therapist that actually worked, because I remember in Botswana, I tried like a number of therapists and it just turned out badly. So yeah. I do worry. I mean, how can I not? I worry when I generally see men around kids. I get really scared. But this is a start. Me having this conversation is a start.
I think that's very good and true. I mean, I think that's an honest answer, and I think what Maseo is doing today is a very, very brave step and taking a step toward trying to help other children not be hurt.
What is it that you can advise young women, even mothers and fathers, what is it that we can do to try and look out in our little children, both boys and girls? What can we look for to find out if they are being abused or not? Thank you.
Thank you. That's a really great question. So I would say that, first of all, I think as a nation, a lot of us need healing. We need to be aware of our own pain, of our own hurts, of our own past traumas, because I understand that there were so many people that could have helped me and my family, but they were blinded by their own pain. And sometimes, even though you've never had this conversation, now that I'm grown, I can see that, oh, this thing might have happened to this person, or maybe that's why they avoided to have that conversation with me. So I think we need to acknowledge our own pain and try to seek healing for that, so that when someone comes to us for help, we are not looking at them through the lens of our own pain, or we are not pushing them away to avoid them triggering our own hurt. Secondly, I would say that let's have authentic, real relationships with our children, because it won't start when something bad has happened and then you come and you're like, oh, I want to love you now, you know? And that would make it hard for that child to even open their mouth and tell you, because that relationship does not exist in the first place. Let's have an open conversation and open relationship with our children, and keep that open so that they know that if someone does something to me, I can always go to my mom, I can always go to my dad, and I know that they will believe me. And I know that they are the person that I can go to, and they will keep me safe. And I feel like sometimes also we put like a lot of emphasis on mothers, or say parents. The truth is, what can keep kids from being hurt by these people is these bad people not hurting them. So I feel like we need to find a way to reach out to people hurting kids, to just say stop. Because sometimes you can do all that you can possibly do, and something can still happen, because there's bad people existing in our communities. And those are the people that we need to work towards stopping. So there's this thing. Personally, I was raised by my grandmother. And so what happened, my grandmother would take like her own grandkids, and then she would take in relatives as well, to come and stay with us. So the people that violated me were like these relatives, old men that my grandmother took in to come and stay with us. And there's like so much of that happening, where parents leave their kids with their own mothers, and that person is tired. They have to do a lot of things, and there are like 12 kids in the house, or there are 7 kids in the house. They don't have the time or the energy to pay attention to one kid, or so a lot of these things, they can go on happening, and it can be unnoticed. And because I remember that I felt that what was happening to me happened in plain sight. And I remember it happening to some of my cousins as well. And I would see like this man text this child and separate them from everyone else. And you can look at those things, you can see like, why is this person being overly friendly with this child? Why are they always keeping this child to themselves? It can look like it's love. Like, oh, that's your favorite cousin, or that's your favorite little nephew, or that's your favorite little niece. But we need to be careful of those things, because there's like so much. They try to keep this child all to themselves so they can abuse them. So when you go and say, this person hurt me, they'll be like, no one loves you more than that person.
No, I think that's very deep. And one of the things that she and I were talking about is this conception that as mothers, we actually should go and take our child to live, with the grandmother or the home village. And the reason we say is because we can't take care of them because we're working. But the fact is, there are childcare. It is an inconvenience. But when Maseho and I talked, she was saying, I would have rather lived in a one-room house, which was safe, than to be in a place where maybe it was deemed more comfortable but less safe. So to the mothers out there, I would just ask you to examine your heart. What is the reason why your child is not living with you? Fathers, what is the reason you're not protecting your little girl? Why are you not home protecting her every night? Because if it's for your pleasure, if it's because children are hard, they're loud, they're messy, they're inconvenient, but that's your job to take care of them. And so our culture needs to stop glorifying just sending our kids to live with other people. And I'm not saying it's wrong to send your kids. I mean, at this point, let me just be transparent that we have realized that our son is now living with my parents in America. And the reason why is because we know that that's a safe environment, and because he had some medical issues that he was genuinely better off being in America with my parents. So there are times when the situation you're in, it is genuinely not the best situation. But a lot of times, if we're honest, it's because the kids are inconvenient and because we're selfish and we don't want to deal with the kids because they're loud and they're messy. And when you go to work all day and you come home and the kid is like, "Meow, meow, meow, meow," you're like, "Oh my gosh, just go live with my grandma. Just go live with my mother," because it's easier. But then what's happening is because of us trying to protect ourselves, we're putting our children into a place to be violated when we should be the ones protecting them. So can I just speak humbly and ask you today to examine your heart and say, why is my child not living with me? And is there anything I could do within my power to bring my child home and to give my child a great life? Because I bet that your child would rather have your love and your time than a better, more comfortable place. That's just an encouragement.
And can I also just add to that and say, we are not saying grandmothers are bad.
Yeah,
We are not saying relatives are bad. It's a great support system that we all have. But what we're saying is assess the situation. I mean, Masero has just said it right now. I mean, you're taking this child to a place where there are already so many other children. So how would you expect the grandmother to do a better job than you when you are alone, or maybe you have 1 or 2 children, and you can obviously take better care of your own child. So that's all we're saying is assess the situation and look at it. If it makes sense and you know they will be safe, okay, that's fine. You know, you take the child to the grandmother or other relatives. But if you're looking at the situation, you see, I am just overwhelming this poor old lady who should also be resting and enjoying her life, then please, let's try and make the best decisions for these children. Because whatever is happening right now, they are going to carry it for the rest of their life. And that is not, and something like this, that is, like an abuse, something like that is so negative. You don't want your child to have to carry that kind of burden for the rest of their life. It is very unfair.
I'm wondering if you could tell us what signs that we could look for as relatives of children who may be suffering. What can we look for so that we can help to intervene and put an end to their suffering?
Okay, thank you for the question. So I'm gonna answer that question based on my own experiences and what I observed from other people as well who went through what I went through. So sometimes they can be withdrawn. They can be too secretive for a child. And there are some things as well, like they can't even like hold their own pee, you know. And people would always wonder, how come this child they shouldn't be peeing on themselves. They are too old to be peeing at themselves. So there's that as well. And then some kids become hypersexual. Like you'd see that, no, this child is acting out of the ordinary. A child shouldn't be that sexual. And some people always dismiss it as, oh, they're just playing. But why would a child play in such a sexual way? Another thing is some kids act out. You may think that they are rude or they are, because they are trying to tell you something, but they don't have the words to say it. So they're doing something that will get your attention because in their own brain, at least maybe whatever action that they are doing would bring your attention to what's happening to them because they don't have the words to say it. So there are so many things. A child that's like always depressed as well, sort of like I said, I used to just cry and then people would say, okay, you know, like it was just like dismissed that way. And you'd wonder, why is this kid crying? Like, they're crying, no one hit them, nothing happened, just out of the blue, they're just crying. There'll be so many signs. It's either they are really down low or they are just acting out. And yeah, and sometimes, sorry, and sometimes for those who don't show the signs, I think it can just go to as far as them just telling you that, you know what, this thing happened. They may not show the signs, but if they tell you that this thing happened, please believe them.
What do you advise the little girl that is out there going through what you went through? How do you advise them to reach out?
I would say that, like, if there's someone that is genuinely kind, that they feel that they can trust, try opening up to that person. And I would say that there is hope. And there's no formula of you are going to do this and this thing is going to happen. But if you are a child and you are there, I just want to tell you that there is hope and you can get help. And I want to emphasize on the fact that it's not your fault and it's not your shame to carry, because in most cases, that's what keep kids from talking about it. You do not have to be ashamed. Something wrong is being done to you. And you can open up, tell someone, tell your teacher, tell your mother, tell your grandmother, tell someone. And now there's like things like Motswana women, I've seen that on Facebook. That just came to my mind. There's like people who write stories. You can write there anonymously, and there can be people who can genuinely reach out to you and help you if at home you can't get that kind of help. But I really hope and pray that there can be practical action taken to stop that if a child comes out and say, this is being done to me. Because for them to talk and being left in that situation only does more damage than good.
Are there any other tools besides what we asked earlier on that you use?
Yes, so as I already mentioned, I am going through therapy. So the thing is, I was born in a Christian home and I always knew God. But for me, that place, because I was angry and it was hard for me to bring it to God and say, God, please heal this. Because I'm like, why would you let it happen to me in the first place? So when I finally came to God and I said, God, here's the thing, please help me with it. And I was reading the word of God and using the word of God to affirm my identity in God, that I am not what was done to me. My name is Masiho, and God created me with a purpose. And God says that I am a chosen generation. I'm God's own special position. I am special. When God looks at me, He's utterly and, absolutely in love with me. He loves me that much. I am valuable. I have worth. And there's a reason why God put me on this earth. And that wasn't so I could be used in a filthy way. But I have a bigger and a better purpose than that. So I use the word of God to affirm myself. I go to the Bible to look for my identity in the word of God. And I've surrounded myself with people who are positive and they understand me, people who can, when I'm going through difficult times or when I feel like, you know what, I don't want to be here anymore. There are people who look at me and say, Masero, you are beautiful, you are talented, you have a purpose, you are a child of God, you are a wonderful friend, you are this, you are a wonderful sister, you are a wonderful person to have around. there are friends who affirm me and they bring me up when I'm down. There are people who affirm me. So you're going to need people who can walk this with you and people who are healthy for you. And there's the word of God as well. And I go to therapy as well. So yeah, but most of the work is something that you are going to have to do yourself. It's a lot of undoing a lot of bad things because it affects you physically, it affects you mentally, it affects you emotionally. So there's a lot of undoing that and affirming yourself in the positive.
Let me just add to that. One of the things that just really touched me one time when Masejo and I were talking about this, when she was talking about tools that she uses, is she said, you know, one day I just was looking around and I saw everything in the planet has a purpose. The birds were created for a purpose. The ants were created for a purpose. The trees were created for a purpose. And I am not any different. And I just thought that was so profound, that just because someone has hurt you doesn't take away your divine purpose. And I love the fact that she said she lets the word of God speak to her, because it's a mental battle. It becomes a mental battle. And so every time that you feel accused and you feel condemned, you're able to go to the word of God, which is full of life and hope, and say, there is now therefore no condemnation in Christ. You are loved, you are valuable, you are worth it. And I am so thankful that Masejo has learned that tool. And I would encourage you at home that I know some people might say they're Christians, and those are the very people that are hurting you. But please don't let those people stop you from going to the God who created you and loves you so much that he died for you. He never left you. In fact, over and over in the scripture, it says he will never leave you nor forsake you. And so as sick as it is what you're going through, I can promise you that somehow God can walk with you through the valley of the shadow of death.
What exactly can be done to help a boy child as well concerning this problem that you are facing?
Yes, it's an absolute pandemic. Because like if you Google like countries with the highest rape rates, our country is number 2. For such a country with such a small population, that is too much. And I know what I've been saying also apply to boys as well. This is something that I should have said. I apologize. It also applies to boys as well, because I don't think that it's only happening to boys now. I think it's been equally happening to boys, but now boy kids are now given sort of like the voice to talk, because there's this notion that boys are supposed to enjoy it. Like people always think that if a child is a boy, they should have enjoyed it. Like, oh, I wish I know some men who would like comment, especially on social media, when a man says that I was violated as a child. They were like, oh, you're so lucky. I wish I was violated. No, they are not lucky. Sorry. No, they're not lucky. They were not supposed to be violated. And that was very, very wrong. You know, and I would say that there's some men who were violated as kids as well. And because they are holding on that pain, now it's manifesting as whether they are hitting people, and some of them are going back to violate kids as well, or if that continues the cycle. I would say don't just pay attention to girls, pay attention to boys as well, because it can equally happen to both genders.
What do you think causes a person to become an abuser in your own understanding?
Okay, a lot of people, for example, like there's been like worldwide, there's been people like R. Kelly who've been, you know, who've been accused of such things, and he's come in to say that he's been doing that because his sister did that to him. So there seems to be that cycle as well. So I don't know how true that is, but it seems like those people are hurt, because I don't think there's someone who is normal, who's functioning perfectly, that can go and cause that damage to another person. I think there's a lack of awareness. And like I said earlier, a lot of people are hurting, and there's so much that they are holding down inside themselves, that they're trying to use certain things to take out. I think there needs to be more awareness of how damaging this is, and also more awareness of the need to heal. Yeah.
In season 1, we did a show on substance abuse, and there was a police officer in the room. And one of the things that he said, which I thought was very profound, is when they were interviewing and talking to prisoners, both men and women who had hurt people, that one of the things they said is, what does it matter? It's not like anybody cares. You know, it's like after a while when people neglect you and they ignore you and they're mean to you and they abuse you, you get to the point where you have to either get hurt every day or you have to become dead on the inside. You have to become so cold that you don't care anymore if you hurt anybody else, because people hurt me so I can hurt you, because that's just what world is all about. And so one of the things I would encourage each one of us to do is to look for those people who they literally seem like dead. They seem cold, they seem distant, because like Masejo said, a normal person doesn't feel like that. We're made to be loved. We're made to want human company. And if someone does not, then there's a question why. And I'm not saying overnight your kindness is going to kill them and break them, but slowly, slowly, slowly show them that there are still people in this world that genuinely love others. Break them so that when they actually get tempted to hurt somebody else, they see that this actually hurts people, and they start to have a conscience again, because it's been seared because of years of abuse. And so one of the things I think in dealing with breaking the cycle is, like she said, it's not just dealing with the person that's been hurt, but the perpetrators that continue to hurt people. And it doesn't help to just tell them, you shouldn't do this, because they don't care. Because somebody hurt them and they didn't care. So we have to love them and be kind to them and be there for them, and to respond to their violence and their rudeness with just persistent love. And I think if we could each one identify 1 or 2 people that we can just love and be kind to, we have no idea the difference we could make in our culture.
You know, perhaps the most important unit of society is family. And that's what we are trying to do with this show, is that if we can remind each other that that family where we are from, if we can try and strengthen the family, if we can be healthy as a family, one family at a time, that's where it starts. I mean, this, like Masejo and Ashley have said, hurt people, hurt others. Where did it start? They didn't just pick it up somewhere. You know, it started from home, the time when they were raised by a parent or parents. You know, we didn't pay enough attention, or we just didn't care to do it. So it starts with us parents. We have a grave responsibility to make sure that we are raising these children, and we are very attentive. You know, let's validate them. I mean, one of the things Masejo has said repeatedly from her introduction up to now is, when these children share, parents, please believe us. There's a problem there. So as parents, I think we should be listening, and we should be picking up on something. Why did these kids have to scream so much for us to hear them? So if we are not believing them, then there is a problem. So if we can just give them that, at least that they know we are safe, at least if I talk to my parents, they will hear me out. They will actually believe that if my child is saying they are being abused, then it must be. This abuse must be happening. And then the parents, then we need to take those steps to start helping our children to address the abusers and start having this conversation even within the family, you know, and instead of protecting, which is what happens most of the time. Instead of protecting that uncle, that brother, that father, that stepfather,
Call them out.
call them out.
Report them
Talk
to the
about
police.
it. Talk about it as a family. Report them to the authorities, because if
They
we
deserve
keep,
to be in jail.
Yeah,
If
if-
they don't suffer, they're never going to stop.
Exactly. So if we keep it under wraps all the time, nothing is ever going to change. We are only helping the situation continue to be worse. And so, that question, what do you think causes these abusers to be abusers or to continue? We are enabling them. There are no negative consequences for them, either from the law or even the family itself.
I just want to also humbly ask the people who should be protecting these children to examine their life and think, what is keeping me away from my child? Is it alcohol? Is it sleeping with other people? Is it working hard? Whatever it is, can I tell you that thing that you're doing will never fill the void like just loving your child. There's just something so fulfilling about sacrificing yourself to love another person. And so I know that probably you're doing this to seek some kind of fulfillment that you don't feel because someone has hurt you. But can I just ask you just to stop, seek help, and try to just say, you know what? Nobody did this for me, but I'm going to do this for my child. I'm going to stop sleeping around. I'm going to stop working so hard. I'm going to start drinking. I'm just going to be there tonight. I'm just going to go home and say, let's eat dinner as a family. Let's talk tonight. Let's make it stop tonight. It's not going to happen overnight. They're not going to believe that you changed overnight. But do it again tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow until the child starts to say, has my parents changed? Do I matter? Am I worthy of their time now? And slowly you begin to get to heal that child by just your presence and your love.
Okay, what urgent systems should be and must be put in place to curb this moral decay?
Yeah, what a question. That's really where we need to be going, is finding solutions. I actually personally think there's a lot of awareness, at least in public, maybe within our doors, within the families, we are not talking enough, but publicly, it's out there. I don't think any of us can say they have not heard about child abuse and what we need to start doing, but we are actually not doing it. Talking about it continuously and not doing anything is not solving anything. So I would say, and we've already touched on some of this, as a country, as a society, starting with our leaders, because I could even be sitting right here doing this show, which I believe is helping many people. And perhaps I'm even an abuser myself.
He's not, but
Okay?
yeah.
But I'm giving that example. That is how sick the society is.
That is true.
That the decision makers, the people who are doing these shows, the people who are raising awareness
And preaching in pulpits.
and preaching in pulpits, they are themselves the perpetrators. So can we just examine ourselves and say, are we really serious about solving this issue? And if we are, it starts with me, it starts with Ashley, it starts with you. Each one of us, within ourselves, let's determine that I am going to be part of the solution, not the problem. That's the first thing that we must all do. And then the next step is then when we sit around the table and we say, what is it that we need to be doing? Do we have stringent laws that are actually meant to negatively, that are meant to discourage the perpetrators? Okay, one of the things that Ashley and I have picked up as we counsel and as we talk to different people is that actually you find that most of the time the police could be doing what they are supposed to do. Okay, in some cases they are not. But in most cases actually they are. But if they bring the perpetrator to the law, is our justice system equally protecting this person?
Because when they put them back on bail the night after and they go back home, what's going to happen to that little girl, that little boy that night?
So some of the conversations we've had with the police officers is like, we arrested him. We arrested her. But He's there. I literally see him at his workplace. What am I supposed to do? I can't arrest him again for the same thing until he does the next thing. So our systems, are they lining up such that we are actually serious about addressing this situation? In the churches, are we actually there to only empower ourselves within our walls as churches? Or are we actually doing what I believe as a Christian we are called to do? Which is not only to take this good news and heal ourselves, but we are in our communities and we are actually helping our communities, hearing them, providing. You know, the Bible talks about in James, the greatest religion that you and I can have is being there for orphans and the widows. So what that points to is not just widows and orphans. It points to the fact that as a church, we are actually there to support, to be the greatest support system for the vulnerable in our society. Because the Lord is close to the brokenhearted. Because the Lord, absolutely, He is close to the brokenhearted, and He wants to use us as the agents to actually assist, you know, and be there for these people. So can I just say to our churches, let us, you know, I don't want to sound like this guy is so mighty and righteous, because I'm not. But together we can help ourselves. Can we just get out of our church doors, be out there in the society and actually matter and be part of the solution? Can the society just know that the church is there? They are working with them. Sometimes at home, it's so difficult for these children to be able to say what they're going through. But if the church can come and be that voice, be that hand around these children, we can just start. You know, we have to start somewhere. At least we can give them the confidence to know that somebody really cares. I really believe as a society, we can start going towards that solution.
And I would add another thing about the church. We personally, and I'm sure everyone in this room knows, there's someone in your church that you know is abusing their wife or abusing their child. We all know what's happening. And when you go to the elders or the leaders, this is what they do. You don't know that for sure. Let's just keep quiet. Then you say, okay, well, bring witnesses. You bring a witness, you bring a witness, you bring a witness. Let's just keep quiet. It's not our place to judge, but it is your place to uphold the law. And the law says it's wrong to abuse another person. And if you know that and you're a willing party of helping it keep silent, then I call you a sinner too. I mean, it makes me sick to my stomach that people in our churches protect the perpetrator over the ones who are being abused because we're so worried about our appearance. Who cares? Someone is hurting. Someone is desperately hurting. And we're like, oh, but he's an elder. Oh, but he gives the best tithes. He gives the most money. We can't offend him. Forget about the little person. Anyway, we don't know if that's true. It's her word against his word. No, but we brought you 2 other ladies that said he's done the same thing to them. 2 other people. Well, let's just keep quiet. To me, that is called being an accomplice to a crime.
Will I be wrong, Masoho, to assume that if the father is abusing the children, the woman will be busy protecting the father?
I would say that anyone who is a bystander in this problem is a part of the problem. Anyone who's a perpetrator is a part of the problem. I feel like there's so much emphasis being put on women. But the thing is, sometimes if this woman is being abused by this man who is abusing the children, you don't know the threats that go behind closed doors. For this woman to say to kids, don't talk about it. And which I'm not condoning, but we need to look at it that way, that maybe some women are just relaxed about it. And then they're just like, well, I don't care. I don't know why. But some people are genuinely living in fear. And the only place that they run to talk about these things is social media. And they talk about it in secret. And they would say, please hide my ID. I am so and so, this is happening, things that will never make it to the police station. Why? We need to ask ourselves why. Why is it that people are wanting to speak out, but they can only do that in secret without being known? Each and every week, there's a woman being killed. And every woman knows that. It's just around the corner. This person can do this to me anytime. It's very sad that in our country, each and every week, there's a woman being killed. And I think that's really sad. And I think some people are genuinely scared. Maybe this man tells them, if you ever say this, I'm gonna kill one of your kids, or I'm gonna kill you. And for someone who's already living under trauma, they tend to scale the trauma and say, it's better for my child to be alive and be abused than for them to be dead altogether. So I think our society fails us at some point, our culture, our family structures. We need healthy family structures. And for those who haven't had kids yet, can we please establish healthy families before we have children with people and stay with?
Do you hate the person who abused you, or have you forgiven them?
I would say that forgiveness is a journey. Growing up, I always had thoughts of killing men who've abused me. I carried this anger. I always thought about killing people constantly. And I was like, my goal was to grow up and go and just kill everyone. Yeah, that was my mind as a child. But then I realized that carrying bitterness only hurts me, not that person. And sometimes a person will never come back to you and say they are sorry. You are going to have to forgive and let go for yourself so that you can heal. Because I wasn't going to start the journey of healing while I'm still holding on to the grudge. Yes, some days I wake up and I'm angry at the world, and a part of me just hates all men. I have to remind myself that, you know what? That person did not do that to you. There's that person who did that to you. And this anger that you're carrying is only hurting you. This bitterness is only hurting you. Now you've closed yourself. You can't even make friends. You can't even form healthy relationships because of what that person did to you. So now it's like a cancer that you're carrying on in your life. So it's better for you to just let go and continue. Every time it comes back to me, I will tell myself that, you know what, I am not that person. And this is not my burden to carry. I am loved. I am loved. I am fearfully and wonderfully made. And God said that He made me with a purpose. I am all these wonderful things. And all these things that God created me to be, those are things that I will focus on. And when it's too hard, I'll come to God and say, God, this is how I'm feeling today. And I don't know how I'm going to work it out. I don't know if it's going to go on for a day or 2 minutes, but please help me get through it in a healthy way that I don't have to come back to this very place again.
As we close today, I wish you could have been here with us in the studio audience. It was a very touching story. But the number one thing I hope you have gotten from this is that each one of us have a part to play. It's me first. I need to examine, what am I doing to contribute to this problem? Is there anything I'm doing? Am I ignoring someone that needs to be loved? Am I not with my child as much as I should be to know what's really going on? And then we need to start thinking, what can we do with the people that we know are hurting others, but we keep quiet? Most of the time, we're worried about the shame that they will feel or that we will feel if we call them out for their sin, without thinking about the shame that the child is having to feel because no one is protecting them. So can I just encourage us at the end of this all is to start being more concerned with the innocent children than the protection of the leaders of our society or the parents or the elders or whoever it is that's hurting. Because really, one of the best things we could do for them is to stop them from hurting others. Put them in jail in a place where they can be apart from these people, and then start the process of healing with them as well. Because one thing we've got to understand is that everyone in this cycle is hurting, and somehow we've got to stop the cycle of abuse, which is destroying our nation.